They thought the throne they threw in your path would trip you, but the universe, it made it part of your stage. You see, the world has its own way of balancing the scales, quietly, slowly, precisely. Cosmic balance doesn't miss. Every sabotage, every fake smile, every whisper behind your back gets recycled into a future they never saw coming. What they planned to break you only built you. Because the universe isn't blind, it's strategic. It rearranges chaos into catalysts, turns mockery into motivation, and turns the hunted into the ruler of the board. They didn't just want you to fail, they needed it. It made them feel safe, superior, still in control. But fate doesn't care who laughs first. It always makes sure the last laugh echoes loudest. My dear chosen ones, the irony is brutal. They tried to bury you under doubt, but the same dirt they threw ended up burying their relevance. Your rise wasn't loud, but it was precise, calculated, divine in its timing. And now their worst fear is unfolding. You're not just surviving. You're becoming everything they said you'd never be. This is what haunts them, the power of being chosen. You don't chase power, you attract it. And that terrifies people who rely on masks, manipulation, and cheap victories. So if you felt this alignment, if you know you weren't meant to stay small, like this video, subscribe for more and join the force of the few who rewrite the rules silently, ruthlessly, and without permission. Your rise was never accidental. It was a universal correction. If this message hit something deep inside you, it's because you're not just anyone, you're the chosen one. What's happening to you isn't random, it's alignment. And only those marked for more will ever understand this level of pressure, resistance, and rebirth. Most people won't believe it, but that's because it's not meant for them. Stay locked in till the end, because what's coming next will explain exactly why they can't handle your rise. Number 1. Don't confuse their silence for safety. That's where power loads in the shadows. They thought your silence meant surrender. That's where they messed up. See, most people hear silence and assume weakness. But the chosen ones? We use silence like a sniper scope. Cold, still, and deadly accurate. You weren't being passive, you were positioning. While they were running their mouths, you were running simulations. You were collecting data, studying patterns, measuring loyalty. And the whole time they thought you were folding, you were forging steel beneath your skin. They laughed when you didn't bark back. That's because their entire identity is built on noise. They need applause to breathe. You just needed space to calculate. They were busy crafting insults, trying to bait a breakdown, but you didn't bite. Because you've outgrown the need to explain yourself to people too shallow to swim in your depth. You knew they weren't ready for a response, so you gave them none. You gave them silence. And that silence? It ate them alive. You didn't vanish because you were broken. You vanished because you were building, sharpening, reconstructing. The same people who thought you were finished are now confused by your evolution. They can't understand how you leveled up with no validation, no support, and no applause. But that's the power of being chosen. You don't rise with hype, you rise with heat, silent, consistent, and explosive when ready. What they couldn't see was that your silence was full of motion. It was training, it was transformation. While they were performing for attention, you were rewriting your next chapter in stealth mode. And now they can't figure out how you became the storm while they were busy watching clouds. You didn't need an audience. You needed alignment. You didn't need to bark back. You needed to outgrow the battlefield. And now they're suffocating in the silence they once mocked. Because it didn't break you, it built you. That's the kind of silence only a real one understands. The kind of silence that doesn't beg to be heard. It waits to be felt. So now they tremble, not because of what you said, but because of everything you didn't say. You gave them nothing, and still, they're gasping for air. That's what terrifies them. They wanted smoke. Now they can't breathe. Number 2. Stop shrinking to make them comfortable. Your realness isn't a threat, it's a mirror. They'll say you're too much, too loud, too bold, too direct. But truthfully, you're just too real. And their pretend little worlds can't handle that kind of presence. You walk in and suddenly the masks itch, the filters crack. The roles they've been playing start to feel fake in your shadow. It's not that you're trying to dominate. Your very existence is a challenge. You're not playing a role. You're not adjusting your volume for comfort. You're not packaging your energy to make others feel taller. And that's why they crumble. Chosen one, your power doesn't need noise. It's in the way you stand, the way you don't flinch, the way you speak only when necessary, and still shake the room. They're not scared of your voice. They're scared of how little you need theirs to feel whole. They mistake your self-trust for arrogance. But it's not arrogance. It's authenticity without apology. They've worn masks for so long, they've forgotten their real face. And when someone like you shows up, raw, unfiltered, steady, they see every truth they've avoided. So they twist it, label it. They call you the problem because they can't face their own reflection. But you just keep showing up as you are. No edits, no shrinking. Number 3. Don't let their hope for your failure become your blueprint. Stand tall. Anyway, they didn't casually hope for your failure, they were depending on it. Your downfall wasn't just a wish, it was the backup plan they whispered to themselves every time they settled. Because if you, someone with no more help or privilege than them, actually made it, it would rip their entire comfort zone to shreds. You didn't just represent possibility, you exposed their excuses. You were the mirror they didn't ask for. The proof that fear was the only thing holding them back. So when you stepped out of line, refused to stay small, refused to follow their script, they got scared. Not of you failing, but of you flying. Because your rise meant their safe little box wasn't safety at all, it was a cage. They masked it as concern, told you to be realistic, said you were doing too much, dreaming too loud. But underneath all that fake support was a silent prayer. Please, crash. Because your success meant they'd have to admit they gave up too soon, that they chose average. They didn't want to race you. They wanted you disqualified. Because just seeing you move was enough to disturb their stillness. You showed them there's always more, and they resented that. Now that you didn't fall, they're not disappointed. They're furious. Not because you failed them, but because you exposed them. And nothing burns like realizing the smoke they wanted for you is now clouding their own reflection. Number 4. Never run from the storm. Real ones learn to ride the lightning. They thought they were punishing you by hurling you into the storm, but they didn't realize you bring the storm with you. You don't just survive mess. You mold it. You bend it. You bend them. They tried to throw you into waves meant to drown you, but you walked on them like solid ground, steady, unbothered, calculating. They thought the thunder would scare you. They forgot you are the thunder. Chosen ones aren't afraid of noise. We become the sound. Every time they stirred chaos, you didn't flinch. You absorbed it, turned it into raw voltage. Every insult, every attack, every dirty move. They were just fueling the generator. What they wanted to be your breakdown became your blueprint. They tried to rattle your peace, but didn't expect that you move best when everything's shaking. See, they don't understand your kind. You don't clean up storms, you weaponize them. You don't run from disorder, you strategize in it. While they panic in turbulence, you plot in it. You sharpen your timing, your strike, your rise. You're not untouchable because you play it safe. You're untouchable because you know exactly when to detonate. Now they can't even breathe in the atmosphere they created. Why? Because you turned their chaos into your oxygen. While they gasp, you glide. And as you rise, lightning in your veins and calm in your stare, they finally realize, this storm doesn't shake you. Number 5. Don't be afraid of being too much. That's code for can't be controlled. They say you're hard to deal with. What they really mean is, I can't control you. You don't break when pressured. You don't budge when they bait you. You don't morph to match their comfort zone, and that shakes their foundation. Chosen one, they're used to molding people like clay. But you're steel. You're blueprint proof. You don't bend, you define the room. They mistook your confidence for arrogance because they've never met someone who doesn't beg to belong. Your refusal to play by their script isn't rebellion, it's clarity. You don't need to be loud to stand firm. Your no doesn't come with a disclaimer. Your boundaries aren't up for debate, and that unsettles the people who rely on guilt, shame, and manipulation to stay in control. They want to label you difficult because it's easier than admitting they can't access you. But you weren't made to be accessed. You were made to be respected. You're not confusing. They're just uncomfortable around someone who refuses to shrink to fit their fantasy. They can't read you, they can't move you, and they can't wrap their heads around a spirit that's built to lead, not follow. You're not unpredictable. You're just unowned. And that, my chosen one, is what suffocates them. You weren't made to be liked. You were made to be legendary, and legends don't take orders. Number 6. Stop calling it humility when it's actually suppression. Shine without shame. They didn't want you to be humble. They wanted you to disappear. They dressed it up as virtue, whispered it like advice. Stay grounded, they said. Don't get ahead of yourself. But let's call it what it was. A carefully disguised demand for you to stay small enough to never threaten their illusion of control. They needed you to dim, to downplay, to disappear in plain sight, because your light made their shadow feel exposed. They wanted to shrink you to fit their comfort zone, to redefine your power as arrogance and your silence as submission. But real humility isn't about erasing yourself to soothe fragile egos. It's not about bowing to people who never earned your respect. Humility, for the chosen one, is knowing you're the storm and still choosing when to strike. It's walking into rooms with silent power that speaks louder than their desperate attempts to feel important. You didn't need to announce your greatness. It was in your presence, in the way the atmosphere shifted when you entered. They mistook your calm for emptiness. But that calm, it was strategy, precision, controlled energy. Now they hate the fact that you didn't fold, didn't need applause, didn't need them at all. What haunts them isn't your rise. It's the fact that you rose without stepping on them, that you became undeniable without their validation. And now they're the ones shrinking. Because humility isn't about kneeling, it's about standing tall without flexing, and that's a power they'll never understand. Number 7. Revenge ain't screaming. It's evolving quietly until they can't reach you. There was a time you craved revenge, a time you thought silence would feel empty without a final blow, without a headline victory they couldn't ignore. But that version of you no longer exists. You evolved, and that evolution became the weapon they never saw coming. You didn't win by clapping back. You won by outgrowing everything they used to define you. You stopped measuring your worth by their damage and started building a life so far beyond their reach, it became its own justice system. They wanted you in pieces, still explaining yourself. But instead, you disappeared and came back whole, unapologetic, untouchable, unreconcilable with the person they thought they could ruin. Now they're not choking because you attacked. They're choking because you vanished, thrived, and made it look effortless. They didn't expect your glow-up to be silent, strategic, and surgical. That's what haunts them. Not that you're angry, but that you're indifferent. You became everything they said you couldn't, without ever mentioning their name. That's the ultimate revenge, to no longer be available for their version of you. They wanted smoke. What they got was an oxygen-deprived version of reality, where you control the air. Let them watch. Let them suffocate. You were never meant to fight them. You were meant to rise beyond their reach. Number 8. Don't beg to belong. Your existence already breaks their script. They don't fear your voice. They fear your presence. You don't need a mic to shake a room. You just walk in, and the air shifts. That's not charisma. That's confrontation. Your very existence is a challenge to the fiction they've built their lives around. You never needed applause to feel real. You never begged to be seen. You didn't ask for space. They just felt you coming, and that's what rattles them. You're not chasing recognition. You're dismantling everything that was meant to box you in. While they wait for permission to become, you already are. You walk like you know something they'll never understand. And you do. You know freedom. And that kind of self-possession, it terrifies people who've built identities out of compromise. They were trained to blend in, to smile, to bow, to survive. But you're a walking contradiction to their submission. You didn't just break the mold. You burned the blueprint and wrote your own. That's why they whisper. That's why they stare. That's why their silence is laced with envy. You're not defiant by effort. You're revolutionary by nature. You don't have to protest to be a problem. You are the glitch in their system. You are what happens when someone chooses power over permission. That's why they're furious. You're the wildfire they can't contain, and now the smoke they created. They're choking on it while you breathe free. That's the rebellion. That's the threat. That's you. Number 9. They want you to choke on their chaos. Train yourself to breathe fire instead. They didn't want to fight. They wanted a front row seat to your downfall. The smoke they brought wasn't meant to test you. It was meant to choke you. They didn't toss flames your way expecting you to rise. They expected you to sputter, panic, and collapse under the pressure. But that's where their illusion ends and your legend begins. They thought chaos would break you. But chosen ones are sculpted inside storms. You weren't gasping. You were absorbing. While they waited for signs of your weakness, you were absorbing every ounce of smoke like fuel. What they meant as a trap became your transformation. They forgot one fatal truth. You've been fireproof since day one. You didn't run from the blaze, they did. Because when you stepped through their sabotage untouched, they saw it. The thing they feared most, that the fire they set wasn't your end, it was your engine. Now the air is thick with their regret. They're the ones suffocating, choking on the very smoke they conjured. You're thriving in it, breathing like it was made for you. Because while they gaslighted and plotted, you evolved in silence. You mastered combustion. You turned every insult into ignition. And now, as they scramble to understand how you rose from the ash they scattered, one truth remains. You didn't just survive the fire. You became the oxygen it needs to burn. Number 10. Quit running from your demons. Make them build your empire. They expected your darkness to consume you, to twist you into something weak. But instead, you made the unthinkable move. You turned toward it. While the average person runs from their shadows, you shook hands with yours. You didn't numb the pain. You studied it. You didn't hide the scars. You traced them until they became your map. And now, The same demons they prayed would haunt you. They guard your gates. Chosen ones don't fear what's broken. We rebuild with it. Every betrayal, every breakdown, every private war. They didn't destroy you. They sculpted you into something unexplainable, something untouchable. You didn't just survive the darkness. You absorbed it, transformed it, let it forge your armor. Now, those pieces of your past, those battles nobody saw, they're the exact reason no one can break you now. You're not clean, you're not polished, you're not trying to be. You're carved from chaos, proof that power isn't born from perfection. It's born from the mess, from the parts they said disqualified you, but you used them as fuel, and now you walk with a force most people can't even comprehend. They wanted smoke, but you became the whole wildfire. You didn't overcome your demons, you recruited them. And now they can't breathe because the storm they hoped would destroy you reports to you. Number 11. Stop letting people toy with you. You're not here to be programmed. They thought your silence was submission, that your patience was permission, that just because you weren't loud, you were lost. But here's the truth. They weren't dealing with someone desperate to be seen. They were dealing with a chosen one who was studying the entire board before making the only move that matters, pulling the plug on the game. You were never trying to be a god. You were just done being their pawn. You stopped letting people use your energy as fuel for their broken agendas. You stopped dancing around their fragile expectations and started owning your space without apology. You didn't fit their mold, and that's exactly what made you dangerous. They built their comfort on your compliance, made their peace out of your silence. But that peace, it was fake. A castle made of playing cards, trembling the moment you stood up and stopped playing nice. You weren't chaos, you were correction. A living reminder that calm built on control isn't calm at all. It's fear disguised as order. You didn't show up to blend in. You showed up to reset the frequency. And the moment you stopped pretending, their system cracked. They called you difficult because they couldn't design you. But the truth is, they feared you because you undesigned them. You're not playing God. You're just done being their game. Number 12. Don't chase the glow, disappear, reinvent, return, wearing the crown. They thought you were gone because you went quiet. But the real ones know, when a chosen one goes dark, it's not retreat, it's recalibration. While they were out there showing off for applause, you were vanishing into the shadows to sharpen every edge of yourself in silence. You weren't hiding, you were mutating. And now, your silence has matured into a crown they can't explain or deny. You don't glow up, you go deep. You don't decorate your worth in filters or noise. You build it like a fortress, stone by stone, flaw by flaw, alone and unseen. And when you come back, it's never for attention. It's to own every inch of space they once thought you lost. They chase being seen. You aim to be remembered. What terrifies them is that they can't track your rise. You move without posts. You level up without praise. While they need the spotlight to survive, you built your throne in the blackout. Because pressure doesn't make you panic, it makes you precise. By the time they realize what you've become, it's too late. You're not louder, you're heavier. You walk in wearing silence like armor, and they choke on the weight of your presence. Because now, when they look at you, they see someone who doesn't need validation, because you are the proof. Let me know when you're ready for the next one. And if all of this hit you deep, it's because you've lived it. This isn't just talk. It's your timeline. Your silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy. Your absence wasn't surrender, it was transformation. And now that you're re-emerging stronger, sharper, and untouchable, they can't handle the power you built when no one was watching. If you're walking this path, you're not alone. You're chosen. So like this video, subscribe for more reminders of your unstoppable rise, and drop a comment if you know exactly what it means to rebuild in the dark and return with fire in your chest.